Hi there, name's Stephen Whitaker. Throughout this video, I will be discussing about the topic of using a standard digital SLR camera. I will take you through a step-by-step type tutorial which will hopefully allow you to gain knowledge on using the basic usage of a camera. I will cover the topics of aperture, shutter speed, depth of field, focus, and ISO. But unlike the basic and brief description in my previous video, I will explain in greater detail how these techniques and skills should be used. I obtained this knowledge through research on the internet and various articles, and also by experimenting with my own camera in my spare time. So with my understanding, I will show what I have learned and give details to make this process much simpler to follow. So sit back and enjoy. First off, aperture. You can begin by practicing to memorize all the functional details on a digital camera about aperture. First, remember that the lowest number is a larger opening, which allows the most light, and the higher number is a smaller opening, allowing the least light. This is opposite of what may be expected. Use aperture on a digital camera to change the area of sharp focus of your photo, or from sharp to blurry, otherwise known as depth of focus or DOF. Use the lowest f-stop, f2.8, which is usually when using a standard SLR camera, for a sharp foreground and blurry background, useful in portraits for example. Change the aperture to the high settings such as f8.0 when a sharp image is what you are looking for, such as in landscape photography. Change the aperture setting when you need more light in a low light photo, or when taking a motion shot. Something that may help is by adjusting the aperture and other settings to create a sharp focus of an object in motion against a blurry background. Use the aperture in a digital camera to help with shaky or blurry images if needed. Depth of field. Depth of field really means, well, technically only the subject in focus and all the other objects at the same distance are in focus. Everything else in front and behind are out of focus. How much of out of focus, though, really depends on a term called the circle of confusion, also known as COF or COC. What we are really wanting to know as photographers is what affects the depth of field, so we can control depth of field in our pictures. For a long time, photographers have gone with the following three criteria: lens aperture, distance from subject, and focal length. This is the international standard, you could say. Although print size and viewing distance influence how large the circle of confusion appears to our eyes, aperture and focal distance are the two main factors that determine how big the circle of confusion will be on your camera's sensor. Larger apertures, which are smaller f-stop numbers, and closer focusing distances produce a shallower depth of field. With this subject, shutter speed, I will explain how to use it with a slow shutter speed first. So here we go. First off, slow shutter speed. We use this for two reasons. First, because it's quite dark and would probably need to let more light to the camera. Or second, because we would like to introduce some blur into our photo. Panning is a photography technique where you follow your subject as it moves. An example of panning camera is if you are tracking someone riding a bicycle. Therefore, for the time the shutter is open, while keeping the same pace as someone riding the bicycle, relative to a camera, a bicycle would not move in the frame, but the background would. Therefore, the background will appear blurred and the bicycle stays in focus. Next up, fast shutter speed. If slow shutter speed allows you to get creative with blur, fast shutter speed has the opposite effect. It freezes time. A fast shutter speed could be considered anything over 1 and 500th of a second, but modern digital cameras go much faster than this. If you have a digital SLR camera, you may well be able to select shutter speeds up to 1 to 8,000ths of a second, which is incredibly fast. What this means is that the shutter opens for just 1 and 8,000th of a second. In this brief moment, time is frozen. And as a photographer, you are capable of using this brief moment creatively to capture the moment. A good example of fast shutter speed is this picture which I'm showing right now. This picture represents someone popping a bubble while it's floating in the air. As you can see with the fast shutter speeds, the instant that you click the button, the shutter speed goes within that range of options you may choose, which in this case probably 1 and 8,000th of a second. Time is frozen and the picture is still, ready for your imagination to take over. Well, that brings you to the end and conclusion of my video. Throughout watching my first and second video, I hope you, as a viewer, are able to become familiar with the SLR camera and know how to use it. Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching, guys.